This is the exact spark the Winnipeg Jets need. While many players on the Winnipeg Jets last year had fantastic seasons, helping the team go on to win the President's Trophy for being the best team in the regular season, there were a couple players whose seasons maybe didn't go according to plan, and we can look at them as potential bounce-back candidates in this next season who can help the Winnipeg Jets maintain their spot as true contenders in this league. But before we do hop into this video and talk about those players, I couldn't help but notice it looks like about 79% of people watching the videos here on Jets Digest were not subscribed to the channel. I would highly suggest you guys throw a subscription. We're talking Jets every single day, and we are getting closer and closer to the new season. So make sure you're subscribed and you won't miss a beat. But now, let's hop into the video. Let's talk about this article, which was titled 4 Jets Bounce-back Candidates for 2025-26. This was written on the Hockey Writers by Declan Schroeder. And before we do hop into it, I'm just going to let you know we're going to go through this based on the order that it was placed in this article. I also think that this is in order of least important to most important for the Winnipeg Jets to have a good season. So make sure you stick around till the end of the video and we will talk about the most important players for them to have a bounce-back season for the Winnipeg Jets. But let's hop into it. Let's talk about this first player, which I have talked about him many times here on the channel as a potential candidate to join the Winnipeg Jets next year. That, of course, is going to be Nikita Cherov. Cherov has spent the past few seasons playing in the AHL with the Manitoba Moose, being a solid contributor for the AHL squad. However, at this point, he looks like he's at the point where he's not really going to learn anything more by playing in the AHL. He's 22 years old and is poised to be making the jump to the big club this next year. Now, in regards to him being a bounce-back candidate, if we take a look at his games played, he only played 30 games this past year. The reason for that was he did have an ankle injury in January while he was playing against the Toronto Marlies. But we look at his production this past season, having 18 points in 30 games, which is very good, especially considering the fact that the Manitoba Moose were abysmal offensively. They were terrible. I think they had the least amount of goals scored in the AHL last year in total. And their highest point scorer had 37 points, I want to say, in a total of like 75 games. So very clearly the Moose were hurting for offense, and this guy, when he was in the lineup, was a solid contributor for them. And even further to that, he's had a couple of stints with the Jets over the past 2 years, playing a total of 5 games, tallying 4 points in those 5 games. But even further to that, even further to the point to points, like this is a guy who is a bit more of a grinder. He's going to play as like a middle 6 player for the Winnipeg Jets whenever it is that he does crack the lineup. And whenever I've looked at him these past 2 seasons playing with the Jets in those 5 games, he has looked right at home. He has a great motor. He is grinding and hard in the corners. He can separate the pucks from the opponents, and I think he's got some pretty decent finish. So it looks like this player could be poised to kind of take that Mason Appleton kind of slot on like maybe the 3rd line or 4th line, where he can go there, go into the opposing end, fight and battle in the corners, try to tire out the other team so that when the big players, the Scheifeles, the Connors, the Villardis of the world get onto the ice, they're able to make hay with a tired defense who has been just trying to survive the onslaught of, players who just want to come in and grind them down. So this guy looks poised to make the jump to the NHL this next year. I've talked about him many times, and I think also his skill set being a bit more of a grindy player makes sense for, jumping him into the league and kind of giving a spark to the Winnipeg Jets that I think that they're going to need, especially considering he is a quick skater. I think that the Jets are going to be a lot slower next year, and so having a player who's younger, who's got a lot, a chip on his shoulder, wants to come in and prove himself, a guy like Nikita Cherov could be a key member of this Winnipeg Jets team come middle of the year. Soon as training camp, who knows? We'll see when training camp comes along, but I'm excited for this player, and I think that he will have a much better year this year than he did previously. Now, we can move on to a very interesting player, one that is always a heated topic for Jets Nation, at least previously, maybe not so much now. We're going to be talking about Billy Hanola, who comes in on number 2 on this list, and the kind of written up summary here by Declan really puts a needle or puts a pin in what's going on with Billy Hanola. He's, written here, it says, 6 years removed from being drafted 20th overall, it seems like Hanola barely exists to this organization. if they still remember who he is, he certainly hasn't been in their plans. The now 24-year-old defender just played 18 games last season, tallying 1 assist, and he is stuck at 53 career NHL games played through a total of 6 seasons. That's not even 10 games a year. However, the reason why this player has had such, it seems like they kind of just forget about him. He has just had terrible, terrible luck. Not this past season, but the season before, it looked like he had really earned a spot on the Winnipeg Jets roster. However, in the preseason, he unfortunately suffered an ankle injury, and in his rehab and getting back to it, right before the season this past season, he got an infection after getting surgery on that ankle. So he's had terrible, terrible luck. Every time that he has looked like he has been ready to make the jump to the NHL, something happens, whether it's, an ankle injury, an infection from a surgery, this or that. And at this point, I would hope for a bounce-back season from Ville Heinola, but I'm just going to be honest with you guys, as someone who has defended this guy time and time again in the past, getting frustrated when players like Logan Stanley or Nathan Beaulieu or whoever it may be in the past, Derek Forbort playing over him. At this point, the ship may have sailed for Ville Heinola. So, and it's also very interesting when we look at the roster composition right now, because when the Jets go into this next season, they are going to have to send down through waivers one of their defensemen, more than likely. So whether that's Logan Stanley, who we can debate how good he is, I still think that just because he's a big guy, he could probably net something in a trade. Maybe the Jets look into that. Same thing with Ville Heinola. There's a lot of teams in this league who might take a flyer on this guy, especially if he goes onto waivers. Regardless, I think that this guy will end up on another team by the end of the year. I just think the Jets don't have him in their future plans. And it is what it is. It sucks because, I was a bit of a cheerleader for this guy. I really wanted him to come into the league, show the fact that he can, pass the puck well, despite his size, battle in front of the net. But realistically, his role is taken up now by a player like Hayden Fleury, who has come in, has taken that third pairing spot away from Logan Stanley, and very clearly shifted the view of the coaching staff. Because you look at this past postseason, and the Scott Arniel did not trust Logan Stanley against the St. Louis Blues, and Hayden Fleury came in and was a stabilizing force. So if Ville Heinola wants to be on the Winnipeg Jets and wants to, make the roster out of training camp, he has to come in here and make sure that he shows that he will be better than Hayden Fleury, which will be tough to change the minds of this coaching staff, because like I said, I think that they look at Hayden Fleury as their Swiss Army knife third pair guy who can come in here and be solid, whatever. He is what he is. If he has to go up in the lineup, so be it. But regardless, it's going to be a tough route for Ville Heinola to make it back into this league, and, well, I guess make it into this league in general. Okay, let's move on to our third player, our second most important player that he has a bounce-back season, and that will be Gustav Nyquist, the 35-year-old Swedish winger. He signed a 1-year deal with the Winnipeg Jets this next season, and this is a player who I actually have some faith can put it back together and fight the aging curve that, Father Time is undefeated, but this is a player who has had some solid seasons going into his early 30s. We can take a look at, his previous seasons. This past season, he played with the Nashville Predators. And the reason I'm willing to discount, this past season that he had, where it was definitely a down season for him, that Nashville Predators team had a lot higher expectations than they ended up being. They signed Steven Stamkos in the offseason. They come into this next season thinking, they're ready to take a wild card spot, maybe third in the Central. Who knows what they were thinking? They definitely thought they were better than they ended up being, and it was a disappointment from day one. And so I'm willing to discount this season with the Predators that Nyquist had, because when you have high expectations for your team and right away, someone deflates your tires, and it's difficult to really be super motivated. And again, when you play on a bad team, sometimes the juju is just too bad. And so despite all of that, if we look at the season he had prior with the Nashville Predators, in 81 games, he had 75 points. Again, just below a point per game player. He's a guy who still has a good motor and has a lot of skills. And if we look at, we can take a look at, he had a little quote here when he was asked about joining the Winnipeg Jets. He said, "I still feel young, legs feel good, and body feels good. Hopefully I can take that game from 2 seasons ago and bring that to Winnipeg. I want to contribute as much as possible, but just be an all-around good player." And so very clearly, this is a player who is motivated, has looked at the Winnipeg Jets as a potential landing spot for him to, reinvigorate the final years of his career. He's a guy who's never won a cup, and, I would have expected him to have be a little bit deflated when things don't go well with the Predators last year. Look at the Jets, who look to be contenders, and go, I want to join that team and work my ass off and make sure that I can, contribute it and, have a bounce back season. So I think that he is going to be super duper key, especially considering the fact he's going to be kind of somewhat de facto replacing a guy like Nikolai Ehlers. Obviously, I don't expect him to be Nikolai Ehlers, but I think that he can be a part of, helping the Jets in the aggregate make up for that loss. And now we can go to our final player, the one, the only, the hometown boy, Jonathan Taves, and look at him as a potential bounce-back candidate. Of course, it's a little bit different with him, considering the fact that he has not played for the past 2 seasons, had a very difficult illness with having long COVID. But at this point, I'll be honest with you, I think the Winnipeg Jets just need him to come in and be decent. I don't want to have these crazy high expectations like, this guy is our, second-line center. He has to be a second-line center. Realistically, money-wise, that's what we're hoping he will be. But I think that if the Jets can just provide a solid third line, if he's a third-line center, I think that does wonders for the Winnipeg Jets. Because I've talked many times about how the top 6 forward lines end up kind of being the way they get put out there. You have to put out Lowry's line to fight off the other team's best lines so that you can put Scheifele up against the weaker lines. And I think that having a player like Jonathan Taves, if he can come in here and be decent, just be even a form, some sort of semblance of what he was, previously, I think that, this would do wonders for the Winnipeg Jets, giving them the opportunity to run their top 3 lines, just, roll them. When the Winnipeg Jets are at home, they can do the whole Lowry thing of, shut down the opposing team's best players. But, when they're on the road, it's a little harder for them to do that, considering the other team gets the final change. And if they are able to roll out 3 solid lines, this will do wonders for the Winnipeg Jets on the road. And again, even if we look at this, the stats from Jonathan Taves, final years before taking that 2-year break, he somewhat, I guess not super recently, had a 60 points in 70 games, but before that was about half a point a game player pace-wise. So anything really here, if he can just come in and be solid, be decent, be steady, win some face-offs, I know everyone likes to look at that as something that the Jets need, I think it will do wonders. And a bounce-back season from Jonathan Taves could fix this team. We'll see what happens when the season starts up. Will Chibrikov make the team? Will Hanola get sent anywhere else? Will Nyquist find his form once again? And will the hometown boy have his homecoming and it be fantastic? But regardless here, that's going to be it for me today on Jets Digest. Have yourself a wonderful day. Enjoy the rest of your summer, and I'll be here breaking it all down, and I'll see you in the next one.